session is dedicated to technology, innovation, and disaster risk reduction. In these sessions, with us, we have 10 scholars representing different parts of the Asia to present their study focused on science, technology, and disaster risk reduction. Meanwhile, before to begin, I would also like to inform you all that this Zoom session is being recorded, and please mention to us if you have any objections or so. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce two dignitaries of this session. Their presence as a co-chair in the session is adding more value, and we are so much honored to have both of them. Now, moving along to our session, please join me to welcome Dr. G.P. Ganapathy. Professor G.P. Ganapathy is working as professor at Center for Disaster Mitigation and Management, Vellore Institute of Technology, Tamil Nadu, India. He completed his doctoral research in earthquake microzonation for Chennai City at Anna University, Chennai, India. Dr. Ganapathy received special award for the contribution to District Disaster Management Authority, Vellore, and received various fellowships. Welcome to the session, Professor. Welcome. Our next co-chair of the session is Dr. Basantaraj Adhikari. Dr. Adhikari is a geohazard expert having research interest on tectonics of the Himalaya, climate change, hill slope movement, and human interactions, Himalayan sediment flux generation, and community-based disaster risk reduction. He is the author of more than 40 scientific research papers and book chapters. He received various recognition for his work.
Sorry to interrupt you, please share the screen.
Field of this. And welcome. We are so honored and delighted to have you with us, both the co-chairpersons. Welcome to the session, Dr. Basantaraj Adhikari, sir, and welcome to the session, Professor G.P. Ganapathy, sir. Thank you, both of us, for having with us today. Now, our respected co-chairperson will take over the session and will call presenter to present their papers. However, our technical sessions, we have collected all the videos, and our co-chairperson will call their name and will play the video accordingly. Thank you, and over to you, co-chairs.
Thank you, Dr. Basanta.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor Ganapathy. And I'm very pleased to join as a co-chair with you. And thank you once again, AIT, for inviting us and providing this opportunity to contribute as a co-chairs. I hope all these presenters have already received the instructions for the video presentation, and then the question and session later in video or audio or in chat. But would like to request that presenters please look at the chat room of Zoom so that you can reply to save the time. But if you prefer to reply in a video, we'll provide that opportunity also. So for this particular technical session, technology, innovation, and disaster risk reduction, we have 10 papers. And so in the beginning, I will chair the session, and then I will invite our co-session chair, Professor Ganapathy, to chair and lead the session. So in the beginning, I want to invite Dinamani Biswal to present why farmers in India are not adopting crop insurance, insight from behavioral economics literature. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, I am Dinamani Biswal, PhD scholar at Indian Institute of Technology, Tirupati, India. Today I am going to present my research paper on why farmers in India are not adopting crop insurance, insights from behavioral economics literature. This paper is co-authored by Dinamani Biswal and Chandrasekhar Vahinipati. So the structure of the paper is like this: introduction, development of crop insurance in India, determinants of crop insurance adoption in India, behavioral anomalies in crop insurance adoption, concluding observation. First, we'll discuss introduction. India is a country of agriculture. Most of the workforce in India are engaged in agriculture. You can say around 50% workforce in India are engaged in agriculture. However, agriculture is full of risks and uncertainty. In order to cover these risks, farmers usually adopt different formal and informal risk coping mechanisms. However, crop insurance is one of the most favorable risk coping mechanisms adopted by many different countries of the world. Crop insurance covers farmers' covariate risks, makes farmers creditworthiness, and encourage in risk investment. Apart from this, it also smooths consumption and income. Currently in India, two types of crop insurance prevail. One is Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, another is weather-based crop insurance. In spite of different benefits of crop insurance and high subsidy given by the Government of India with a very low premium, the adoption rate of crop insurance is very low in India. So National Sample Survey Office data, 17 cloud data says that around 7% of farmers and 4% of total cultivated area covered under crop insurance. So over the decades, large body of literature explained and inquired about the low adoption of crop insurance. They found different socio-economic, demographic, educational, and structural factors are responsible for low adoption of crop insurance. However, these studies lacks behavioral anomalies or behavioral economics literature or behavioral biases that influence crop insurance adoption. So the objective of my research paper is to understand these studies conducted so far in India, basically which inquire about determinants. And the second objective of my study is to derive insight from behavioral economics literature on crop insurance adoption for future research in India. So the chronology of crop insurance schemes are like this. The last two schemes, weather-based crop insurance and Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, are still prevailing in India. So there is two group of literature I explored. The first group of literature explained the determinants of crop insurance. The second group of literature explained the behavioral anomaly that could influence farmers' behavior to adopt crop insurance. So the determinants are categorically divided into four groups, that is economic factor, social demographic factor, educational factor, and structural factors. So in economic factor, price or premium of the insurance is important. So many studies in India found that price and premium of the crop insurance is negatively related. Similarly, liquidity constraint also very important factor for crop insurance adoption. It observed that lack of money or liquidity also hinder the crop insurance adoption. Social demographic factors like caste, like scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, other backward classes, it's observed that these castes are backward in adopting crop insurance. Some higher caste like general caste category, and they are in advance to adopt the crop insurance. Apart from this, household size also influence the crop insurance adoption. Household having large household size, they adopt more crop insurance. So education factor is also important. So education, financial literacy, and extension service also helps in crop insurance adoption. Lastly, in the determinants, structural factor like basic risks, land holding, then crop diversification also influence the crop insurance adoption. And it's observed that basic risks is very important because farmers when going to purchase crop insurance get confused because sometimes the index of the weather index insurance do not match with the farmer's loss, and farmers did not get crop insurance. This happens basically in weather index insurance. So the second group of literature particularly explain the behavioral anomalies that could influence farmers' decision to adopt the crop insurance under this group. So we will discuss different behavioral anomaly under 4 categories. First one is framing matters. Second one is ambiguity aversion. Third one is cognitive bias. Last one is trust. Framing effect, particularly, this is applicable when farmers are biased by certainty effect, loss aversion, and hyperbolic discounting. So in this case, we can frame the insurance and make it a gain frame rather than loss frame. So make the insurance premium to be paid and the last of the crop season, that is harvest time. So farmer will sign the contract first and pay the insurance later. So this will influence the farmer to adopt more crop insurance. So many studies also found this evidence from different developing countries. Similarly, ambiguity aversion also can be eradicated by employing this framing as well as financial literacy among the farmers. Many studies found that farmers are ambiguous when they face a index-based insurance or wither-based insurance because it is influenced by basis risk. Cognitive bias like overconfidence bias and ability bias also influence farmers' crop insurance adoption. In this case, also farmers also adopt low insurance. Then trust, and this lastly, trust also influence crop insurance adoption. Trusting the institution, trusting the product, and interpersonal trust plays very vital role in crop insurance adoption. Selling insurance by locally trusted agent could increase the adoption. Conclusion. So this study observed that the so-called factors like so-called determinants like economic factors, socio-demographic factor, educational and structural factor, they are important in crop insurance adoption. However, behavioral factors or behavioral anomalies are also complemented to these factors. So this study suggests that certain behavioral anomalies, certainty effect, like certainty effect, hyperbolic discounting, loss aversion could be eradicated by reframing the insurance. Ambiguity aversion also can be eradicated by reducing basis risks and correcting over the insurance. Similarly, overconfidence bias, availability bias also can be eradicated by spreading the financial literacy. Lastly, selling the insurance by trusted agent boost the adoption among the farmers. Thank you.
So thank you, Dinamani. It's very wonderful presentation about crop insurance and practices and behavioral practices there. I'm pretty much sure that there will be many questions, but we'll take at the end of this session. So the next presenter, I would like to invite Basantaraj Adhikari to present on assessment of the numerical methods of seismic resilience of built structures in India. Please proceed.
Greetings to one and all attending my presentation today on the important topic of the numerical methods for the seismic resilience of the built structures in India. I, Basantaraj Adhikari, structural consultant, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, and other co-authors have evaluated the gap between the earthquake resistant design and resilience framework for Ahmedabad city. We have selected Ahmedabad because it is the metropolitan city and business center for Gujarat, and same study can be replicated for other metropolitan cities in India. Why we are talking for seismic resilience? Because it broadens the traditional design approach, reduces the exposure, quantifies the efficiency, includes the local level indices, and helps us to react appropriately after the earthquake, after our scenario-based situation. India, 65% country is susceptible to moderate strong earthquake. Vulnerabilities are many: poor construction, traditional practices, lack of detailing, hazards, the definition of hazards. When we see less time history records, and we have to depend more on microzonation studies. For India, not many cities have been done for that, and Ahmedabad city microzonation is done, hence we have selected that. Exposure is very high throughout the country. Economic loss of life, loss of routine, and trauma are the assumed conditions. Earthquake resistant design and construction is not up to the mark. Many vulnerable structures are still on ground. They need to be rectified, and on the other front, tall buildings are being constructed, so we need to evaluate the methods that can be used for them. A 15-story regular RC building in Ahmedabad city is designed as per Indian Standard Code of Practice, and the performance is evaluated as per the new seismic hazard 0.18G suggested by ISR Gujarat, and the performance limits prescribed by the design codes ACI, Eurocode 8, and the Turkish earthquake code. The Ahmedabad city is 250 kilometers from the epicenter. The various numerical methods that we can use, the time integration method, are evaluated to define the resilience in the form of reoccupancy criteria, foreshock, main shock, aftershock conditions. This is the evaluation pattern. The second step, assumption of scenario conditions, very important for resilience definition. Other methods can be evaluated, and finally, the need for the design of mid to high-rise buildings in Ahmedabad city is to be obtained. The various procedures are listed here. All procedures are used for the study. Response spectrum method 1932, Newmark beta method 1959, and other displacement based estimates are used. Finally, the resilience based reoccupancy criteria defined by FEMA 2021 is also referred for this purpose. For Ahmedabad, if we remember, the shear failure of the column, the location of the hinges at wrong locations in the column, then lack of ductile detailing and soft story, all are considered by our IS code. We need to check the safety in the form of the resilience. Building details: 20-meter length, 16-meter width, 45-meter height, x direction 0.9 second, y direction 1 second, and time period is there. Story height 3 meters, soil type is medium, and we have designed as per the 3 codes. The performance evaluation as per the pushover analysis, which is a non-linear procedure. The strength of the building as per IS code is the highest, and the ductility of the building as per the other codes is highest. Hence, we should choose a between result in which the ductility and strength both are achievable. The performance of the building design as per IS code satisfied the life safety, collapse prevention, both performance criteria under 3 ranges of the hazard, whereas the life safety performance is not satisfied both the other codes. We need to work more on that. When we see the performance of a column at the base level, the strength is high as per IS code, represented by moment curvature graph, and the ductility is higher for other codes. The percentage of steel vary by 2 times the amount as per IS code and other codes, whereas the location of hinges in IS design building is on the upper story. The hinges are seen in the lower story for the other 2 codes. That should be followed. And nonlinear, the second phase we have evaluated is nonlinear response spectrum. From a graph, we are able to obtain the nonlinear displacement demands for 1 second, 1.4 second, 1.6 second. The displacement demands are obtained for the building. And then this is important because Ahmedabad city is located at far distance, and displacement based estimates will govern the serviceability criteria and also the strength criteria, because it is a displacement sensitive region. The third the third procedure we have used is Newmark beta method, that is a time integration method, and we have identified 3 time histories: Jamoli for MCE level, Smith for DBE level, and Dusky for the foreshock and aftershock level, that is 2.5% interstory drift and 0.5% interstory drift and 0.2% interstory drift. The feature of the ETABs from original time history, we can obtain a match time history for our region, or we can get a match response spectrum. We should use this feature, and we should get more results from this, and that will help to design the high-rise structures in Ahmedabad city. The pushover analysis procedure showed good results for the building, and the maximum width criteria governed by the prescribed by the code 13920 is helpful, and the shear capacity and the performance of the column gets increased in both directions. The direct integration method gives good estimate of the problem. We need a mathematical model and good dissipation energy model, and hence these are the 2 weaknesses in the nonlinear time history analysis, and we should be careful in using them. The DDBD procedure gave a negative impression of the capacity of the building, as the ductility achieved was only 3 while the assumed value was 5. From this graph, we can say IS code is better in terms of the life safety performance criteria and the collapse prevention performance criteria, and none of the codes were able to justify the reoccupancy criteria, and it is highlighted in gray area for which the research is required. The displacement ductility of the IS code is very less as compared to the other codes, and it needs to be improved. Finally, the interstory drift we have evaluated using a MATLAB program is beneficial to identify the time histories for the resilience-based performance-based design, and we can use them for various displacement limits for the serviceability and the ultimate conditions, and that should be the next step for Ahmedabad city. The current generation for seismic analysis and design must include the locality index, because the locality index represents the vulnerability to a larger extent, and the building bylaw should govern this. And most stringent rules shall be framed for a earthquake range of 4 to 8 magnitude, and the scenario has to be has to be as per the locality. So for the Gujarat level and for the India level, this is very much important, and we suggest to improve the building bylaws, and we need to evaluate the locality indices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bhusan, for this numerical methods for seismic resilience, which is very important for the seismic zones in the Himalayan context or in other part of the globe. Thank you once again. We'll come back to you later on with some more questions if there are. So now I would like to invite Sakina Noah Selomi Siwenselslao, sorry for mispronunciation if any, to present on the role of Facebook in the disaster risk reduction and management case study of the municipality of Kainta. Please proceed.
Thank you, organizers. I will be presenting with you today the role of Facebook in the disaster risk reduction and management case study of the municipality of Cainta. Facebook made foothold in the Philippines in 2004 and rose to be the most popular social media in the country due to factors such as availability of discounted or free access, ability to have real-time engagement, wider network of users, and presence of both public and private sectors. In the figure on the left, the graph shows how Facebook grew in numbers from 2017 to 2019 and is expected to grow in the next 5 years. In the figure on the right, the graph shows the percentage of users among different platforms available in the country and clearly shows that Facebook dominates the market. The accessibility and network of Facebook in the country makes it the perfect platform to use in this study. Cainta is a first-class municipality of the province of Rizal. As of 2015 census, it has a population count of over 322,000. It is the fourth densely populated municipality in the country. Cainta has been experiencing rapid growth and development in the past years, largely due to its strategic proximity to Metro Manila, the capital of the Philippines. The study tried to answer the question, is Facebook a viable source of disaster risk information at the local level? The project's main objectives are to study how risk communication is conducted by the LGU of Cainta through Facebook, to determine whether Facebook plays a role in the LGU's risk communication, to confirm whether usage of Facebook resulted to an increased level of awareness and participation. The theoretical framework adopted for this study is the NDRRMF. As enshrined in the framework, communities is at the heart of DRRM. It entails going into the grassroots and really interacting and engaging with the community. This is where Facebook as a tool comes in, enabling a more accessible approach to communication and enabling a two-way dialogue between the LGU and the community, and has the capacity to be done in real time. Based on the community resilience framework of Macaslan, two common denominators can be identified: good governance and an engaged community. The government creates the enabling atmosphere where a community feels empowered to engage. As an enabling tool, technology such as social media can further foster community engagement by reaching wider networks at a traditional media. There are two parts to disaster risk communication: the conveying of timely science-based disaster information to educate and update community members, and community members providing critical disaster-related information from the ground to influence disaster response. The two parts to this disaster risk communication is what makes it an important aspect of DRRM before, during, and after crisis. The methodology of the study included KII, municipal-wide survey, and desk review. The LGU of Cainta utilizes Facebook in their risk communication strategy through the mayor's personal account, the One Cainta Facebook page, and the Cainta DRRMO Facebook page. As of 22 April, the One Cainta Facebook page has over 110,000 followers and over 105,000 likers. The page is the official Facebook page of Cainta and is being managed by the Public Information Officer. The mayor's personal Facebook account has over 368,000 followers, while the number of friends is not accessible to the public. The Cainta DRRMO has around 4,000 friends, and while followers are not indicated on the page. As confirmed through the survey, 88 of the respondents follow mayor's account and 73% follow One Cainta, DRRMO, or their barangay Facebook pages. This is an analysis of the Facebook posts of the three accounts during 16 to 22 April. Not only does Mayor Nieto have the largest number of followers, but is also the most active amongst the three. The activeness of Mayor in utilizing his personal Facebook account to post LGU-related information may have likely caused the boost in his followers. As for the One Cainta Facebook page, 50% of its content during the same period were posts shared from Mayor Nieto, while the Cainta DRRMO was the least busy amongst the three. All posts during the period were about weather and typhoon updates. The low number of friends also indicate that this page is private in nature and not as accessible compared to the other two. The survey results also confirmed that there is clear preference to Facebook in receiving news and information. To demonstrate this, specific questions were included in the survey related to Typhoon Ulysses, as the survey was launched in the aftermath of this typhoon. 59% of the respondents said that they were affected by the typhoon. In the chart on the right, you'll see that Facebook was consistently the #1 source of information before, during, and after the typhoon. The study also looked at the differences in the approach of posting weather updates by the three Facebook pages during Typhoon Ulysses. These three threads were all posted on the same time. As you can see on the left side, while Mayor Nieto posted an update of their weather, he has also opened a platform to comment requests for assistance and updates on road conditions. A summary of the comparison of the features of each thread can be seen on this table. Except for the use of graphics, Mayor posted an original post about the typhoon, used Filipino language in the post, explicitly asked people to use the thread for urgent request for assistance, and out of all three accounts was the only one replying to the comments in the thread. And this is really the key feature identified and likely the biggest contributor why the post garnered much more likes or reactions, comments, and shares from his followers. 97% of the survey respondents said that Facebook made disaster-related news and information easier within Cainta. Of the respondents who answered no cited that there were too many Facebook channels, there were a lot of mis and disinformation, they experienced slow response, and poor signal was a problem. Although 97% agreed for the mayor or the LG to continue engaging the public in DRRM through Facebook, respondents identified the following improvements. Creating information that's complete and easy to understand, posting less informal topics and concentrating on news dissemination, ensuring prompt responses and real-time updates, creating and centralizing one official Facebook page, boosting internet speed, and exploring other platforms. The community members have used Facebook not just to await news and information, but have been very proactive in seeking disaster-related news and information, such as status of flooded areas and roads, as well as deciding for or against evacuations in the case of the Typhoon Ulysses. The study clearly demonstrates the role of Facebook, the crucial role of Facebook before, during, and after disaster events, which is aligned to the 4 thematic areas of the NDRRM plan. With more and more people relying on receiving disaster-related news and information through Facebook, coupled with the proactiveness of the LGU in utilizing the platform, it is without a doubt that through this, it has contributed to an increase of the resilience of the residents of Cainta. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sakina, for this wonderful presentation on, this social media is very active nowadays, and we need to capture this kind of energy or the practice of social media to understand the different, practices or information for the disaster risk reduction and management. Thank you once again. Now I would like to invite Aishwarya Narang to present an application in predicting residual strength of CFST column after fire. Please proceed.
Hello everyone, my name is Aishwarya Narang and I am from IIT India. Today I'm going to present my research on ANN application in predicting residual strength of CFST columns after fire. Suppose we have the introduction of the CFST columns. In these columns, we have a concrete core with steel casing. Together they call concrete full steel tubular column, as we can see in figure 1. Earlier only circular columns were popular in the CFST, but nowadays researchers have been using the different cross-section areas as well. So why CFST columns over the conventional columns? Because for the smaller section size, they provide the better seismic performance and an excellent fire resistance. The comparison table is also given here. They are really easy to construct as well and gives the advantages of both steel and concrete. So for any construction, it is very important to design it for a fire resistance. But if in any case, any casualty occurs, then it is very important to know the residual strength of the structure so that the retrofitting can be easily happen. So this is the main objective of the research, to predict the residual strength of CFST columns after the effect of fire by the machine learning tools. So we have used machine learning approach to predict the strength here. Artificial neural network tool is used in MATLAB to get the residual values. Now here we have used ANN, and it works as brain's neural learning for computer-based artificial intelligence. Because experimental data set is used, this tool predicts the more realistic data for any prediction. Then ANN has the ability to overcome the shortcomings of the empirical models as well. And finally, it will be a huge benefit for the structural engineers to retrofit the damaged building. There are so many fields in structure where AI is used, like structure dynamics, damage assessment, fatigue crack growth, concrete compressive strength prediction, structure analysis, and their design. Now we have the data collection in slide 3. So in data collection, after the intensive literature survey, 151 columns are selected for the study purposes from the various papers. Full details of the data collection will be given in the paper. And now they are representing the histograms of the data that has been selected for the input data in neural network. For input layer, compressive strength of concrete, cross-sectional area, slenderness ratio, thickness of steel, use strength of steel, temperature are considered as a parameter to decide the residual strength. And the last one here is the histogram for the target values of the residual strength, which will be fed in the neural network to generate the model for residual strength of the CFST column. Now the methodology. So how the neural network works? First, we have the input and target data. Then we form a network. Throughout the study, we have used feed-forward network, and the MATLAB software is used. Then an algorithm is chosen to train the hidden numbers and layers. For every layer, an activation function is decided, and then the network is trained. If it gives a satisfactory result, then we can use the particular network, or otherwise we can again choose new algorithm and neurons and hidden layers. In figure, we can see that there are activation functions, Danzig and Purlin. And in figure 5, we can see the working of hidden layer and weight, in which we have 6 parameters as we had in input layers. The input parameters transfer their weight to the hidden layer, and then hidden layer transfer their weight to the output layer to get the final result. So now we have the results and discussion. In table 2, we can see that we have selected different neurons of hidden layers. Table 2 gives an idea that how means per hidden equation is changing with the different neurons and layers. Out of the 14, the network which is 2 hidden layers with 18 and 12 neurons respectively gives the excellent results for the overall correlation coefficient. In the neural network, the data is automatically divided into the 70% training data, 15% validation and testing data. Throughout the study, we have used feed-forward networks with LM-backed propagation algorithms. Here, figure 6 at the top represents the selected neural network, which gives the best results for the mean square error and for the correlation coefficient, which is the chosen network to train the neural network here. In figure 7, we can see the best validation performance, which is lowest mean square error 0.0054 at epoch 27. In figure 8, we can see that it gives us the performance result of the network. Now we have the regression of the trained network is shown in figure 10, where we can see that for the training data, the regression is 0.986, and for the validation and testing, it is above than 0.9. The overall regression is 0.973 for the whole data set. Figure 9 shows the training state diagram for the network, and at the last in figure 11, we can see a comparison chart for the literature value and the model generated value. The graph is almost overlapping here, we can see that, and so we can say that the trained network is quite satisfied the prediction of the residual strength of the column, and our trained network is behaving very well if we compare it to the literature data. Now the Simulink diagram for the trained network is prepared. In figure 13, we can also see that it represents the custom neural network inside the custom neural network working inside the Simulink diagram. Here we can see that layer 1 and layer 2 act as hidden layers, and layer 3 gives us the value of output data. Coefficient of input data are collected from the Simulink diagram, which also show the influence of the parameters on the residual strength of the CFST. So by this trained network, we can predict the values of the residual strength without any limitations on the data. And as we can see the influence of the parameters, we can see that the cross-section area and thickness of steel and temperature plays a very important role here. So now we can conclude our presentation by saying that cross-sectional area, exposed temperature, and thickness of the encasing steel of CFST columns are the most influential parameters when we are deciding the residual strength of CFST columns. And then the network that has the best performance have two hidden layers with 18 and 12 neurons respectively. The mean square and correlation observed are 0.0057 and 0.97 respectively. The developed model can predict the residual strength of CFST columns with no limitation on interpretation complexity, as many design codes have. Developed model can also be used for the fire safety design purposes to retrofit the affecting structures, which will benefit the structural engineers in a very great way. So, thank you.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for this important and interesting presentation. So now I would like to invite Jawad-ur-Rahman, to present numerical simulation of spherical source blast-induced stress wave amplification. Please proceed.
Hello everyone, my name is Jawad-ur-Rahman and I am going to present prediction of stress wave amplification factor for spherical blast source using numerical simulation. My outline contains introduction, numerical simulation, results, and then conclusion. Drilling and blasting is an economic and effective technique which is widely used for breaking rock mass, such as in mining operations and construction projects, including tunneling, dam foundations, slopes, and highways. A major concern is the high level of vibrations, which may potentially damage adjacent structures and facilities, like slopes, gas pipelines, buildings, and tunnels. Peak particle velocity is widely used to predict structural damage and evaluation of blasting vibration safety. As stress wave is amplified at free field boundary, the attenuation curve at the surface is always larger than within media profile curve. Empirical correlation is used to find attenuation curve at free field surface boundary. Dual presented USBM model, which is presented in 1959, in which peak particle velocity is dependent upon the scale distance, which is R or under root W. R is distance, under root W is the charge weight. If we have field data recorded at surface, we can do a regression analysis on that and we can fit it. By fitting, we can get K and N, which are site-specific constants, And then we can get within profile curve by doing a reduction of 2 to the surface attenuation curve. We can get within profile attenuation curve. The amplification factor depends upon source depth, angle, incidence angle, and Poisson's ratio of the media. Numerical simulation is carried in flat 2D with axisymmetric condition. We have used spherical blast source with equivalent cavity. In reality, when blast detonates around a borehole, a crush zone and fracture zone, which is non-linear zone, is created. But in flat 2D, non-linearity cannot be used, so we have used equivalent cavity, which is a non-linear zone, and it is taken as 0.5 meter radius. After that, blast load is applied on the equivalent cavity of the model. Numerical simulation has been verified with the theoretical solution presented by Jiang 1995. The pressure time history is applied to the wall cavity, which is in the form of like time history, and recorded time histories at within profile curve in numerical simulation at 5 meter, 10 meter, 20 meter, and 30 meter. We can see numerical simulation and theoretical simulation well match, which represent the advocacy of the numerical model. Amplification factor has been found first for homogeneous rock. We can see here in this plot, this is within profile, which is parallel to the blast hole recorded peak particle velocities at 0.25 Poisson's ratio, and surface recordings are higher than within profile, which is nearly 2 times more than within profile. So amplification factor is found based on different type of Poisson's ratio and depths. First, we have considered 3 type of depths: 10 meter, 20 meter, and 30 meter of blast source depth. We can see at low incident angles, the amplification factor starts from 1.8, and when we go at higher incidence angle, we get amplification factor of 2. By increasing Poisson's ratio from 0.2 to 0.25, we see at lower angle, amplification factor is going low. And when we go further and take Poisson's ratio as 0.3, so again, the amplification factor at low angles are low and near to 2 at high angles. So it is thought that every time for homogeneous rock, people use 2 times amplification factor, but we see from numerical simulation that it is dependent upon the source depth and also based on the Poisson's ratio. For inhomogeneous rock, we see the amplification factor is totally inconsistent. At near field, near to the blast hole, amplification factor is high, and at far field, amplification factor is low. And we can see here in this plot that at low incidence angles, amplification factor is near to 1.5, and it get increase and increase with increasing incident angle. So we can say that the amplification factor for spherical blast source is never same, but it depends upon the rock mass strata, depth of the borehole, which is blast source, and incidence angle. So numerical simulation is like advisable to do if we need amplification factor. In conclusion, for uniform homogeneous rock mass, amplification factor increases as source depth increases. For low Poisson's ratio, amplification factor is near to 2. And for high Poisson's ratio, amplification factor is first low and then becomes 2 at higher Poisson's ratio. And inhomogeneity of rock mass plays an important role in wave amplification. Amplification factor at low angles is 1.5 and 2.2 at higher angles. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jawad, for this presentation. Wonderful presentation. I'm sure there will be lots of questions in the chat room. So now I would like to invite the co-chair of this session, Professor Ganapathy, to proceed. Please, Ganapathy.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Basanta. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity given by AIT and Dr. Murshid Pal. So now I would like to invite the next presenter, Dr. Mr. Toshiko Sakono. From the title of the presentation is Feasibility Study of Locally Accessible Cloud System conducted in a remote island in Cebu, Philippines, to meet the real demand for ICT under the COVID-19 pandemic. I welcome to present.
Hello, everyone. My name is Toshikazu Sakano from ATR, based in Kyoto, Japan. I'd like to talk about the feasibility study of locally accessible cloud system, LACS, connected. Hello, everyone. My name is Toshikazu Sakano from ATR, based in Kyoto, Japan. I'd like to talk about the feasibility study of locally accessible cloud system, LACS, connected in a remote island in Cebu, Philippines, to meet the real demand for ICT under the COVID-19 pandemic. The content of my talk is as follows. I will start my talk with some background, then locally accessible cloud system or LACS is introduced. This is followed by the report of feasibility study conducted in Philippines. In the end, I will show some conclusions. This slide shows a worldwide disaster trend of the last 40 years. The left table compares the numbers of disasters in the recent 20 years with the same time period 20 years before for the respective disaster types. You can see that in every disaster type, the numbers of disasters are increasing. The right table is the trend of disaster impacts, like the number of total deaths, the number of total affected people, and the economic losses in the same time periods. The impacts are also increasing. So you can say that number of disasters and their scales are increasing worldwide. Once a large disaster occurs, the infrastructure for ICT is often damaged, and that causes the disruption or serious performance degradation of telephone and internet-related services. As shown in the slide, the ICT infrastructure is typically comprised of access network, transport network, and the internet. Mobile and household users access to the internet through the access network, which include the base stations of mobile operators and optical fibers provided by telecom carriers. Users who want to use the internet-based services like social networking, e-commerce, and information query need to access to data centers of the services through these networks. In the disaster situation, the access and transport network may get damaged, and both the telephone and the internet services may be broken down and or disrupted. We need ways to restore the infrastructure quickly, since the ICT services play a critical role, especially in the disaster situations. To solve this problem, we propose an architecture called Locally Accessible Cloud System, or LACS. LACS is a portable ICT equipment which includes a server, a Wi-Fi access point, a battery, and other peripherals. In the server, principal ICT functions necessary for handling information among local users are installed. The functions are important notice for broadcasting important information, bulletin board to share the information among local people, and chat to communicate among local people with one-to-one basis. Once ICT service disruption occurs, LACS can be carried to the disrupted area and quickly provide basic ICT services to local users. The image in the right is an outlook of the developed pilot product of LACS. Potential users of LACS are disaster responders like local government, fire department, police department, and hospitals, and victims in the evacuation centers. Lags can also be used for the reinforcement of ICT environment in the developing countries where broadband connectivity to the internet is not fully penetrated. In the application of lags in the developing countries and the areas under the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, the lags configuration shown in this slide is practically effective. In the configuration, in addition to deploying lags or local lags in a local area, we prepare lags or central lags as an internet cloud too. The local lags and the central lags are operated so that they are synchronized with each other through the internet connection. With this configuration, users in the area can be free or alleviated from the inconvenience due to the unstable and or less broadband internet environment. We conducted a feasibility study to confirm the effectiveness of lags concept in the municipality of Cordoba, located near Cebu City in the Philippines. We installed an LLAG server in Cordoba's city hall and a Wi-Fi access point to form a local area in and around the hall. The LLAG is also connected to another Wi-Fi access point in an isolated small island called Giltongan Island, which is 6.5 kilometers away from the hall through fixed wireless access equipment. LLAX is also connected to the internet through the optical fiber and to the CLAX configured in the internet. In both C and LLAX, a learning management software for e-education and LAX communication functions for disaster countermeasure are respectively installed, and they are synchronized with each other. Using the deployed LAX system, we conducted the feasibility study as a two-day activity in February 2021. We demonstrated 3 use cases with the participation of over 10 people who are teachers, students, university professors, local government officials, residents, and others. In the e-education case, a student downloaded the educational content and uploaded a report to LMS in LLAX. Teacher then accessed to the report in LMS and evaluated it. In the disaster response case, residents used LAGs in the simulation of searching a missing person. We also installed in LLAX a residence management software and have local government officials use it for monitoring the status of the COVID-19 as a trial for the platform as a service of LAGs. The images shown in this slide are shots taken in the feasibility study. In the end of the feasibility study, over 80% of participants evaluated LAGs to be very useful in every use cases, including e-education, disaster response, and resident management. Okay, let me conclude my talk. In my talk, locally accessible cloud system or LAGs was introduced as a promising solution to fill the demand-supply gap of ICT in the disaster situations, including the COVID-19 pandemic. Feasibility study of LAGs was conducted in Cordoba, the Philippines, for use cases of e-education, disaster response, and platform as a service. Most participants of the study valued the system very useful in disaster situations. We continue the study especially for e-education to respond to the real issue under the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, this is end of my presentation. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Toshiko Sakana. It was a wonderful presentation. Particularly this LAX is a very useful tool particularly on the climate-related disasters. So I think like there will be a more question on this. People might be interested on this. So for any questions, you can put it in the chat box. Now I would like to invite the next presenter, Ms. Mary Antoinette Bengabang, the topic of assessing public value of government-led DRRM inventions, the case of DOST's Hydromet and EWS. I welcome Mary Antoinette Bengabang. Please.
So my study is assessing public value of government-led DRRM interventions, the case of DOST's Hydromet and EWS. You can call me Mayan for short. So to mitigate damages from the flooding events caused by typhoons, the national government, particularly the DOST, led the development and deployment of the stations nationwide since 2012 as part of a project deliverable. Despite the benefits from these stations, no sustainability plans were established. Sustainability plans involve maintenance activities, IECs, and manpower. With the pandemic situation and delays in the renewal of the current project handling these stations, to date, majority of the stations were down since 2020 due to lack of maintenance, which led to increasing the community vulnerability against flooding. LGUs, which governs the communities at a local level, have the responsibility towards these stations in terms of basic support, which includes making sure that there are no obstructions around the stations to affect the data, provide security, as well as assist in troubleshooting. So the study would like to understand how the communities, specifically the LGUs, value these innovations. This study used a framework for merging two theories: technology adoption model and values beliefs norm theory. The framework argues that LGUs from high-risk areas are expected to put more values to these stations compared to the communities at low-risk areas. In relation to that, communities which experience frequent typhoons, numerous flooding, and are located in areas classified as highly susceptible to flooding put more values to these stations. So the following are the sites of the study based on the devised criteria: Misamis Oriental, Zamboanga del Norte, and Pangasinan with specific communities. However, with the pandemic situation, the number of communities had also decreased. Then MDRRMOs were interviewed. These are the LGU staff involved in disaster management and the ones that took on the responsibilities for the stations at the community level. Scoring matrix was also used to quantify the values and then were classified according to prioritization. In reference to Moscow prioritization method, there are 4 classifications of this study. Low, stations are not a priority as the stations were not used due to lack of knowledge and support. Normal, stations are deemed important but not a priority as the stations are only monitored when there's an incoming typhoon in the area. Have at least one investment from either the function or security or community awareness of the stations. Important, stations are prioritized and are daily monitored. Have at least one investment for function, security, and community awareness of the station. And lastly, critical, stations are highly prioritized. Almost the same with the previous category, except that these LGUs allotted budget to sustain the maintenance of the stations in terms of procuring less expensive parts such as battery and load balances. Results and discussion. Reflected in the table are the areas according to its level of risk against flooding from high to low. Despite some of communities in Pangasinan were highly susceptible, the area itself has low frequency to flooding compared to those in Misamis Oriental, which experience numerous flooding and have high flood susceptibility. Aside from flood susceptibility, communities are highlighted according to prioritization. Lingayen and Balingasag have low prioritization, while CDO, Tagoloan, and Siocon viewed their stations as critical equipment. Based on the results, values were affected by several factors. 1. Presence during installation. Deployers already introduced these stations to the LGUs during the installation stage. However, the staff from Lingayen and Balingasag just recently assumed their positions as MDRRMOs, hence their lack of knowledge to these stations. 2. Perceived usefulness. Stations are for disaster management and mitigation and were monitored regularly by the majority. But for Lingayen and Sual, areas with limited exposure to flooding only access the data if there's an incoming typhoon. Perceived ease of use. According to the LGU, websites showing the data from the stations were too technical for public usage, although the officers could navigate the website since majority of them were present in the installation and have prior knowledge. According to the literatures, Proximity to expert and having prior knowledge increase the rate for technology adoption. Fourth, existing investments. The number of interventions to support or complement the devices also meant how significant the stations were to the community. So this slide summarizes the investments devised by the LGUs to support the stations per category. Function includes activities related to troubleshooting, security, which included regular monitoring for functionality, theft, vandalism, and budget allotment for signages, caging, and fencing. Community awareness, which included activities related to IECs and flood drills. CDO, Alubihid, and Alaminos derived other CBDRRM tool as part of community awareness, such as use of staff gauge and use of SOCMED to communicate the data from the stations efficiently. Due to lack of knowledge, Balingasag and Lingayen do not have any initiatives related to the stations. Last factor affecting the value was the support from the governing body. For the case of Balingasag, its head of community do not support the station nor the disaster management activities in their area, hence having the lowest value of 22 points. Support from governing bodies reinforced the need of the equipment for the community. So almost all were interested in sustaining the devices on their own if the budget permits, but only Alaminos rated neutral as it is not highly exposed to flooding events. Despite their interest for sustainability, most of them did not have sustainability plans nor maintenance budget. There are also a lot of factors to be considered for the sustainability of the stations according to the MDRRMOs, such as budget, manpower, etc. In conclusion, values were dependent on the 5 factors mentioned before. Recommendations, conduct a face-to-face interviews with other exposure elements that are affected by flooding events when the pandemic ends to get the perspective of the whole community in terms of valuing the stations. This is initially part of my study, but due to the pandemic situation, I had difficulties in executing that. IEC and flood drills should be regularly held in small clusters, as well as institutionalizing the need for these stations to emphasize the responsibility of the community, as well as fast-track the processing of sustainability plans, among others. So that's all, and thanks for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. It was a wonderful presentation. A very useful presentation too. If any questions, participants, you can put it in the chat box. Now I would like to welcome the next presenter, Mr. Muhammad Sharik. The presentation title is Blast Performance Enhancement of RC Square Column Jacketed with Steel Angle Sections and Battens. I welcome Mr. Muhammad Sharik. Please.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Sharik and I am a PhD scholar at Jamia Millia Islamia. I'm here to present my research paper to all of you on the topic blast performance enhancement of RC square column jacketed with steel angle section and white buttons. As all of us might be well aware that the world has experienced a lot of conflict, like conflict between Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Palestine and Israel. These conflicts are witnessed of the blast damage of the building and infrastructures. At the time of blast and explosion, some buildings and infrastructures bear major damages while some collapse completely. Therefore, the structural performance of any building is very important in case of blast and impact loading. One of the most significant elements in the building structure is column, which is responsible for bearing the load of the building, and therefore it's very important to integrate an analyze the column under blast loading. The performance of the blast can be improved by enlarging its size using additional steel and concrete and using different retrofitting techniques as well. However, in this study, a different approach has been followed to enhance the blast performance of seismically detailed axial-loaded square RC column. In this model, 4 angle sections have been applied on 4 corners throughout the length of the column, And these steel angle sections are connected with wide batten plates at different locations, like top, bottom, and mid-height region of the column. The aim of the study to reduce the transfer mid-height displacement and damages. And this analysis has been done using the finite element method program Abacus CAE. A lot of so now we are going to literature review. A lot of researchers have been done for this and have been studied for preparing this investigation. Some of them have been presented here. Kai et al., Dong et al., and Hu et al. And the main purpose of these papers is to how to increase the blast performance of a column by using different detection techniques. Now we are going to column details. In this study, blast performance of 300 to 300 mm cross-section RC column has been investigated, which is tall, which is 3 meter tall. This column carries a load of 950 kilonewton from top face of the column. A longitudinal reinforcement in column has been provided 4 bar of 25 dia, each which has yield strength is 500 megapascal, and compressive strength of the concrete is 30 megapascal. In this study, we have designed total 9 models, which is shown in the figure, and in this model, lateral reinforcement in the form of 10 mm diastole has been provided at column 1. Column 1 is this, and whose spacing is 150 mm center to center throughout the column. Further, column 2 is seismically reinforced over the length of 600 mm from each end of the column. Column 2 is this, and spacing at the middle of the column is 150 mm in this column. Here 75, here 75, and here 150. At column 3, seismically confining zone of 600 mm provided at top, bottom, and middle of the section, and rest of the column has spacing 150 mm. And next three models that are column 1A1, 2A1, and 3A1 are retrofitted column and having reinforcement layout same as those column 1, column 2, and column 3 with roll steel section of 500 into 500 into 5 mm. Column 1A1, 2A1, and 3A1 has thickness, angle, and batten plate is 5 mm, and the yield strength of the angle and battens is 250 megapascal, and which is connected with wide bed and angle size is 500 to 505 mm, and which is connected with the wide batten that are 5 mm thick over top, bottom, and mid height of the column. For the next three models, only the thickness of the angle section batten plate has been changed from 5 mm to 8 mm. Now the blast history in this model shown here, we have considered 100 kilogram ANFO and scale distance is 4.64 meter. And in the figure 2b, the blast record history has been taken from the research of Kai and Brahma, and the model has been invalidated on the same study. Column 2 has been taken as reference column. This one, the reference column. Kai and Brahma had investigated 100 kilogram ANFO blast load on the same model and made analysis by LS Dyna, and they had concluded the mid-height displacement in their model came out to be 36 mm. And however, we studied the same model using the Abacus CAE, the displacement value comes out to be 34.67 mm, where percentage difference is 3.67 only, and this is shown in here. Now we are going to results and discussions. So result and discussions. The computed maximum transfer displacement of the column 1, 2, 3 are 36.13, 34.68, and 31.68 mm. This is shown in here. And the damage distribution energy are 90 joule, 750 joule, and 630 joule, which is shown in figure 5. Figure 5 is here. This one. Now the steel bar of the column 1, 2, 3 facing the blast experience and maximum compressive stress of 124.57, 141.24, and 137.71 megapascal respectively. While the bar on the tensile side of the column 1 to 3 carrying maximum stress of 63.73, 77.31, and 75.31 megapascal is shown in figure, which is shown in figure 11. The maximum tensile stress in the stirrup of the column 1 to 3 are found mostly over the seismic confining region 600 mm. Maximum tensile stress in the stirrup decreases with decreasing the spacing of the stirrup over the confining zone figure 11, shown in figure 11. Now we have to go on when the strengthening done by the 5 mm thickness batten plates and angle section. In this damage distribution energy column 1A1, 2A1, and 3A1 reduced by 50%, 63%, 68%, and the and we have to check tensile strength in the stirrup of the strengthened column. Notice used and shifted from top and bottom confining region to the stirrup between the, which is shown in figure 11. And the compress, and now we have to go on the third one. When we use angle section and batten plates is 8 mm thickness. Application of the steel angle along with wide battens and thickness 8 mm further reduce the maximum transfer displacement of the column 1A2, 2A2, and 3A2 by 18%, 20%, 19% respectively with respect to the retrofitted column 1A1, 2A1, 3A1, and however 44%, 54%, 54% with respect to unretrofitted column 1 to 3. Table 2, which is shown in table 2. This is here. Now the conclusion of the paper. Conclusion is going to 3 major conclusion is shown in here. Seismic confining lateral reinforcement does not contribute in reducing the maximum displacement damages. Second, proposed strengthening technique enhance the blast performance of the square RC column significantly. And last one is higher thickness of the angle section and batten plate are not found to be more effective in the case of the seismic confining reinforcement. The end and middle region is reducing the maximum displacement but control the damages more effectively. So conclusion of this study, we have observed that the results were better after strengthening, and further investigation can be done on this model and application. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sharik. It's a nice presentation. So now I would like to invite the next presenter, Samwad Mutwali Dawood Muhammad. The presentation title is Towards Resilient Municipal Wastewater Sewerage System in Khartoum, the surcharge flow measurement device. Over to the presenter.
Good evening, everyone. I hope this video finds you well. I'm Engineer Razan Jamal, and I will be explaining to you the research paper project in behalf of my co-authors, Engineer Muayyad Mutwalli, Engineer Tariq Salah, Engineer Muhammad Tawfiq, and Dr. Al-Fadil Azraq. Our research is focusing on the concept of finding an effective method to measure surcharge flow in wastewater systems in Khartoum city. Measurement is very important. And next. Next. This research is focusing on the concept of finding an effective method to measure the surcharge flow in wastewater systems in Khartoum city. Next. Measurement is important as it's required for wastewater system evaluation, infiltration, and inflow analysis, collection of data for researches, planning, design, maintenance, and operation, and also required for studies of daily variations in wastewater. Next. Without measurement, we cannot evaluate the system, so we can know the problems and analyze them. Next. Also, the data is required for the researches, planning, for future expansions or future designs, operation and maintenance problems. Next, it's also important to know how to calculate the infiltration and the inflow and analyze the data to be helpful in future designs. Next, also, as we all know that wastewater shows a huge variation unlike normal water or clean water. So the variation is a very important factor to be studied during the design. Next. In Sudan, overflow is already existing, which makes measurement very necessary when it comes to network analysis and rehabilitation. Next. The problem is that prior to our research, there has been no trial to measure surcharge flow in Khartoum network before. Next. So our main objective was to find an effective method to measure flow We based our device selection based on the type of system we require. Next, the flexibility in design. Next, the ability to measure continuously. Next, the easy installation and manufacturing. Next, and of course, a low budget. Next, as a result, it was agreed that a cut-throat venturimeter was to be used. Next, the venturimeter was used together with the differential pressure sensors and a microcontroller unit. Next, these are the dimensions shown in the figure. These are the dimensions the venturi was manufactured with. Next, based on the conditions of wastewater, the selected materials used were fiberglass and galvanized steel plates. Next, the microcontroller consists of an Arduino board, which is low cost, has a strong community, and easy to program. Next, it also consists of a GSM network shield, a micro SD storage unit, a liquid crystal display screen shield, and batteries used for power supply. Next. The Arduino IDE has a special software running on the system that allows you to write the sketches you require for the programming. The coding language used is similar to the C and C++ languages. Next. As to the differential pressure sensor, it has a sensing element of constant area that respond to changes of forces applied to the known area by fluid pressure. It's calibrated such that the electrical signal is required to be adjusted with a known relationship to the applied pressure. Next. we based our differential pressure sensor selection on the magnitude of pressure to be measured. So it was selected that a pressure sensor within the range of -7 to 7 kilopascal would be used. Its accuracy was equal to 5% out of its full scale. Next. As you can also see here, the mechanism of the system is that the Venturi creates a differential pressure which is detected by the sensors. The sensors then send the signal to the microcontroller unit. After the signals are converted into readable values by the microcontroller, these values are either uploaded to the cloud using the GSM shield or stored in the micro SD unit or displayed in the LCD screen. Next. Before using the device on an actual manhole, it was calibrated in the lab as shown in the figure. Next. The average discharge coefficient from the calibration was found to be 0.9. Next. This picture shows the implementation of the device in a surcharged manhole. Next. We have been faced with some challenges, such as pump stations operation, as some electrical cutoffs caused sudden stopping of pump stations operation. Therefore, also were difficulties in the installment of the device as well, because it requires a plunge and it's risky for him. Next. Summarizing all of the above, we had been able to manufacture a modified Venturi and verify that our network is indeed need for more advanced and exact measurement. We were also able to manage to know the excise precision of our Venturi, which was a discharge coefficient of 0.9. Next. As to our recommendations, we recommend the authorities of our country to use a separate electrical line for the pump and provide solar pumps for emergency. We also recommend future trials to carry out some more modifications in our Venturi in order for it to be able to fit in different groups of sewer diameters. We also recommend them to find a more efficient method for the device installation with less health risks for workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohit Mutwali and other authors. It was a nice presentation, particularly this, the gadget is going to be very, very useful tool. Particularly in India, many deaths that is happening due to people they fell in sewage systems. So this will be a very useful tool, and thank you. And I'll move on to the next presenter, Mr. D. Jayanga Tanuka Samarasinghe from Sri Lanka. And his presentation is on improving flood flow prediction and early warning systems using radar-based precipitation data and the HMS hydrological model, a case study in Kelani River Basin. I request Mr. Jayasinga Tanuka Samarasinghe to present.
Hello everyone, I am Jayasinga Tanuka Samarasinghe, a research assistant of Sri Lanka Technological Campus under the supervision of Dr. Eranda Pereira. On this conference, we decided to present a video presentation on paper entitled Improving Flood Flow Prediction and Early Warning Systems Using Satellite-Based Precipitation Data and the HMS Hydrological Model, a case study in the Kelani River Basin, Sri Lanka. As you all know, the precipitation is the main input for many of the hydrological models, and the uncertainty associated to it dominates the overall uncertainty in modeling and forecasting of floods. So, if we want to properly model the hydrological processes, we really need to get the rainfalls right. There are a wide variety of sensors or the methods used for estimation of precipitation at catchment or regional scale. Rain gauges, weather radars, satellite missions are some of the widely used methods. Each of these methods have advantages and disadvantages. Rain gauges collect the rainfall directly and provide an accurate rainfall at a given point. However, they cannot capture the spatial coverage. In contrast, radar and the satellite precipitation can capture the spatial coverage. However, both methods measure the rainfall in direct ways and above the ground. Therefore, accuracy is questionable. This is a quick example why we want to adjust the satellite precipitation. In this graph, you can clearly see the rainfall accumulation of rain gauges and the satellite precipitation in Canary River Basin. Further, you can see a large difference between two estimates. Therefore, we really need to adjust satellite precipitation before we use this data for hydrological applications. The main aim of this study is to improve freely available daily satellite precipitation data using artificial neural networks. The contents covered during this presentation are the following. Explain the basic principles of adjusting the satellite precipitation data using artificial neural network. Afterwards, the case study which we use to adjust the rainfall data presented. Under that, the statistical comparison and the applications of the improved satellite precipitation data for flood forecasting also presented. Then lastly, we briefly mention about the conclusions that we. According to the comprehensive literature review that we carried out, we can establish a nonlinear relationship with satellite precipitation with gauge-based precipitation. In order to establish the nonlinear relationship, we use tree-layer neural network. The satellite precipitation used as the main input layer and the gauge-based precipitation as the output layer. In order to better fit, we increased the number of hidden layers up to 100. The fitting of the data was conducted with feed-forward neural network system and the transferring was conducted with the sigmoidal function. Further to that, we use 70% of data for training and develop the algorithm and 30% of data used for both validation and testing. Now we can focus for case study which we use these algorithms to test. The Canary River Basin is Sri Lanka's second largest river basin, owing an area of 2,230 square kilometers. Basin can be distinctly categorized into two parts, upper and the lower, depending on the terrain profile. The above Hanwalla gauge is considered as the upper basin, whereas the other is considered as the lower. During the floods, the lower reach is severely flooded. However, there are well-maintained rain gauge network. But we wanted to check the applicability of improved satellite precipitation data in river basin because this is found as a research gap during our literature survey. In this project, we use following data: gauge precipitation with daily temporal resolution, tropical rainfall measuring mission, satellite precipitation with daily temporal resolution. The testing was conducted for severe flood events happened from 2010 to 2020 period. In modeling HMS hydrological model, we use some of the basin parameters also. After developing the ANN based algorithms, we were able to get the results as shown in these figures. Here you can see the original Drrm data with blue bars is very much lower than the actual precipitation denoted in brown color. Once we trained the satellite precipitation, we were able to derive improved satellite precipitation for many of the cases, 2017, 2011 and 2018. However, in 2016, this developed ANN algorithm unable to well capture the actual precipitation as that was an extreme event with the influence of a cyclone. Further to that, we plotted the observed precipitation with the improved precipitation and we calculated the statistical matrix with Pearson coefficient of determination, root mean square error and the mean absolute error. You can clearly see many of the events were well captured with high R-squared values and low RMSE and MAE values. However, in 2016, the R-squared is lower and RMSE and MAE values are higher, but this is still in the acceptable ranges according to the suggestions of previous research work. Let's check the applicability of the improved satellite precipitation for simulating the flood flows. We developed an event-based hydrological model using HMS and calibrated and validated with the actual precipitation. Then we used the improved satellite precipitation for simulate the floods. Many of the cases were correctly replicated with the improved satellite precipitation. However, in 2016 event is not well captured and the flood volume, peak, everything is poorly captured as that was an extreme event. Further, we conducted a statistical analysis to check the model's performances. You can clearly see the flows generated by improved satellite precipitations able to capture the flow process correctly. However, for 2016 is much deviated. Some conclusions from our research work are following. Gauge-based precipitation adjustments are implemented to improve the satellite precipitation and overcome the shortcomings. Artificial neural network can be used to improve the daily satellite-based precipitation. Improved satellite-based precipitation can be used to simulate the floods using HMS hydrological model. However, the prediction capability of extreme events are still questionable. Thank you very much for your attention and we hope you enjoyed the presentation. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. We are happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Janka Tanuka. That's a nice presentation. And so it's a very useful presentation also for particularly in developing the early warning system. So there will be always a difference in satellite-based model as well as the gauge stations. The accuracy of the data also is differ from place to place and depending upon the pixel size. So it's a very, very nice study and thank you. And we are now come to the end of the session. Now I would like to invite my co-chair, Dr. Basanta, to ask for the question and answer session.
Thank you, Ganapati, Professor Ganapati, for inviting me again. So, there are a couple of questions I can see in the Zoom chat box, and we have 12 minutes more, and some of the questions have already been answered, and some of the questions are not, there is no name of the presenters. So, let's see some of the questions. The building codes performance, it's probably to the second presenter. So, yeah. Can you just address briefly for related to the questions? Oh, for you.
Yeah.
No.
Mr. Motion.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did not hear that. Can you please just mention?
There was a question in the chat box regarding the building performance. The course you referred in connection with the
Yes. Yeah, I have partially replied in the chat box, but I will just mention. The question was related to various guidelines that are available. Some are related to retrofitting, but none are directly related to design, except the Eurocode and Turkish earthquake code. So they are performance-based design codes, whereas ASC 41 is based on retrofitting, and ATC 40 and FEMA guidelines are also for retrofitting. So we had compared ASC 41 retrofitting guideline with the performance-based design codes that is Turkish earthquake code and the Eurocode 8. So they give the displacement based estimate. So they are very much important. So we compared it with the design as per IS code. So we have designed a building as per IS code. Now we are evaluating each parameter with respect to performance based design codes. And along with that, we are checking the performance of our building based on the time history analysis. And we are identifying what can be done to improve the analysis part. So numerical methods, we are interested in estimating the responses. So what response we are getting from what method, and where the improvement is required, and what indices we should see in design. That is what our paper is about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I also have a question to Mr. Bhushan. I could see, like, your study area is Ahmedabad, right? So
Yes,
it's in zone 4. Am I right? It's in zone 4.
It is in zone 3.
Zone 3. So that's why you have taken 0.16 G is the base performance. Am I right?
Yes. So the IS code is 0.16 G, and the microzonation study shows 0.18 G, and the NDMA guideline shows 0.22 G. Now we are following IS code, but amplification levels are in the city. So in what area the amplification is there, we need to consider, and that way the displacement will govern more in the design. So that we had evaluated.
Yeah, my question is, like, what about the liquefaction potential? Because when you are designing the tall structure in a liquefaction prone area, the design structure would be different totally compared to the normal design when you are taking for a 0.16 G or whatever the zone 3 calculation. So how would you consider that?
Currently, we have not done a study looking into the liquefaction part. But what I can tell you is when the structures are under liquefaction, then the whole analysis will change. And for that, we need to consider separately that how to control liquefaction rather than the performance in the structure, because the main performance would be below the ground. So we need to control because we cannot control the liquefaction part. So we will have to design more for the lateral effect of the soil. Now, how much lateral effect of the soil is coming, that addition we need to keep, and that will create more displacement. So more stresses and more displacement will be there. So a separate below ground analysis we need to carry out, and that we need to transfer to the above structure. And the performance parameters will be the same given by the IS code, because our elements will not change. Only the below ground analysis will be added onto the above structure and below structure. So that is what is required when we are saying liquefaction.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So thank you, Bhushan. And there is another question to, it is not written the name, but the presenter will understand. So hello, may I ask if LSCS has been introduced in Department of Education? This technology would be very useful to last mile school, especially during COVID time. So can you respond on that?
I think a question to Mr. Sakuno.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name is Sakano, based in Kyoto, Japan. Thank you very much for the question. I already answered the question in the chat. I'm doing a joint research with a team in Cebu, and our activity is already shared with the Department of Education of Philippines, but regional Department of Education. So I'm not sure DOE in Manila knows about our activity or not. But anyway, this is the question for answer for the question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I also have a question. Can I ask?
Yes, please. Please.
Yeah, Sakano, it's a very interesting study, actually. I could see, because I've been in Philippines quite a long time. Like, and I've been traveling in most of the places. But the lakhs, how much it will cost actually, the gadget?
Everybody asking about the cost issue. To tell the truth, this is on the way of R&D, and we are thinking about go into the commercial. And on the way to the commercial, I will decide how much cost or how much price we should put. So right now, I don't have answer. I'm sorry.
I can understand. Okay. Thank you.
So thank you. I think there are no more questions, and this Department of Education and COVID, and it's quite also, there are many studies here in China, in Sichuan University, where I currently based on, and so this is very, very interesting, and we'll explore these things in days to come. And so the presentations were very, very nice. We enjoyed a lot. I and Professor Ganapati, and we were very, very happy to work as or to serve as a co-chairs for these interesting sessions. And I hope everybody enjoyed. So before concluding remarks, so I want to invite Professor Ganapati to conclude the session.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Basanta. It was a wonderful session actually on innovation. So any thing like in innovation play a very, very key role because so we are going in a very fast moving country. So each and every country all over the world, they're very, very fast moving. So innovation is going to be a better solution for particularly on disasters and for any other things also. So today's all 10 presentation, whatever they presented is quite interesting pick. People they have presented over here. It was a wonderful evening. I could say a nice presentation from different part of the country, from a different part of the world. People they have presented the research work. And what I could see, one unique thing is each presentation, it has a unique thing. So they have something very new and innovative, and hope the participants, everyone, they have enjoyed the session. And I would like to thank Dr. Basanta for co-chairing with me this session, and also thanks to the moderators, Mr. Ganesh and other moderator from AIT, and thanks all the participants for patiently listening this event. Thank you everyone, and I thank the AIT for the wonderful opportunity given to us. Thank you.
Thank you, co-chairs. We had a very interactive and fruitful session. Basanta sir, would you like to have your concluding remarks?
Yes, we're very happy, and thanks for providing this opportunity because this is, every year going program, and we are very happy to be part of it, and will be part of it in days to come. And thank you, excellent presenters and the moderators, especially for playing these videos on time, so we could finish on time. So 2 minutes more. And so, yeah, we are on time, and congratulations and good luck for your studies in days to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Basanta sir. With this, we have come to the end of the sessions, and before concluding the sessions, I have some announcement to make. Tomorrow we'll start our conference at 9:30 Bangkok time with a special session. We are having a special session at 9:30 a.m. and we'll be having 3 parallel sessions. Technical session 12 to we'll be having total 12 technical sessions tomorrow, and we also have 2 keynote sessions. Our first keynote session will begin from 11:45 a.m. and our second keynote along with concluding session will begin at 7:30 Bangkok time PM. So with this announcement, for further information about the conference symposium, you can have a look at the Padlet which we have shared with you. The link of the Padlet has been already shared with you, and for any further information you can directly reach out to us through email. With this, I would like to conclude this session, and I would like to thank co-chairs, presenter and participants for your valuable presence. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to welcome you again in this hall tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.